Emily Walsh, and I will be your moderator. Our timekeeper is Hilda Brown, sitting right here up front. We are being recorded live, and we request that you silence your phones right now so that both people in the audience here and at home can hear all the questions and all the answers. So a few dates to remember. The general election is Tuesday, November 7th. Your vote by mail ballot should be arriving this week. Some of you may already have them. You may still register in person at the county clerk's office or online at daviscountyutah.gov up to 7 days before the election. So that would be on October 31st, which is Halloween. Should be easy to remember. Make sure you're registered. Also, if you did not get a ballot in the mail this week, you should go online to voter.utah.gov and check your voter registration. Make sure that your address is up to date. That may be why you didn't get a ballot. Okay. So now on to our candidates. They are seated as they appear on the ballot. With the two mayoral candidates first, Lorraine Kamalu and Katie Witt. And the there's two city council seats. Sorry, I'm really nervous too. 2 city council seats. We have our 4 candidates for that: James Hansen, Michelle Barber, Randy Von Bosse, and Susan Lee. The candidates, we will have 2-minute or 1-minute questions. Our timer will indicate time left at 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and stop. We will ask each of you to please stand to address the audience when it is your turn to answer a question. We'll rotate the first person to respond to tonight's questions. If you are the first person to answer a question, the person on your left will answer the second question first. The person to their left will answer the third question first, and so on. Audience members, if you wish to submit a question, pass your question card to the aisle, and it will be collected by a youth council member. We will use as many questions as time allows. We've got a lot of questions, and we aren't going to get to all of them, but we will sure try. In the interest of time, please hold your applause until the end. It'll help us get through as many questions as we can. Thank you again for attending this evening. Emma Francis from the Youth Council is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, our first question is a 2-minute question, and we'll start with Lorraine. You have 2 minutes to tell us why you decided to run for office, what skills, talents, and experience you have that will help you be a good mayor or council member, and what are the priorities you want to accomplish.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much.
Hold on.
Thank you. We have friends in this audience. Lorraine Kamalu. I'm very happy to be here with you tonight. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm sorry you didn't have anything more exciting to do on a Tuesday night. But it is so important for us all to be engaged in Kaysville. It's an incredible place. My husband and I moved our family here for his Air Force payback in 1996 when there was one stoplight in town. When he was finished with his commitment, we could have gone anywhere, and we chose to stay and raise our family here because we love it so much. I'm running for mayor because I have discovered that I love public service. So my background is in business. I had a business of my own that I grew very large and received a lot of national recognition for business in the photo album industry. But a few years ago, some people encouraged me to become involved in public service, and I was willing to maybe do a little bit. I had a feeling that our mayor may not seek a third term, and so having been a planning commissioner, this is my 4th year as a citizen planning commissioner, I felt like I was ready to step up and be a candidate. I knew we would need good candidates for mayor. It's an important position in our city. It's a position of leadership. Leadership is something that I have done a lot of. In fact, I have led my whole life. And as a planning commissioner, I have learned a lot about what our city needs to keep moving forward. We do not have a full-time planner for Kaysville City, and there's a lot of things that are great, and there are a lot of things that we can do better. Feel free to ask me more about my experience as a Kaysville City planning commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. So, probably back in May, I was here listening to city council meeting. I go to all the city council meetings, and sitting in the back, and somebody looked at me, sitting next to me, and said, "What makes you tick?" And that was a good question. I don't know if I answered it well then, but something you need to know about me is that community service, public service, is who I am. Ever since I have been married, I have always found opportunities to serve in my community. The first thing I ever did was worked on a commission that did much the same work that our youth court does here in Kaysville. And I just can't not see a place where I could help and not help. And because of that, it's led me to have lots of opportunities to serve. Most recently, I was city council member in Longmont, Colorado. My family and I moved here in 2014, but prior to that, I served 4 years on city council in Longmont, Colorado. It's a town of 90,000 people, has a budget of $250 million, and it was my responsibility to make sure that we spent that money wisely. After moving to Kaysville and coming to city council meeting, I saw that I could have a part to play here. And one thing that I feel very strongly about is we need a strategic plan for our community. We have such a lean budget that we need to be very focused on how we spend that money. And who sets the agenda for that strategic plan is our community. It's the residents, businesses, schools, churches. It's not city council, not city manager. Thanks.
Hello, I'm James Hansen. It's good to be with you tonight. I've been living in Kaysville for the last 4 years and enjoyed every minute of it. I'm a professor. I teach people for a living up at Weber State. I teach accounting and I teach auditing. I know that's interesting, but one of my former students and friends is here, so if you need to ask him about how tough the class is, he'll be there for you, okay? He can vouch for me. But I think why I'm running for city council is people approached me and said, hey, we'd like you to serve. And I think, again, the skill set they were after is just that. It's my background as a CPA, my background in auditing, just to make sure that we're spending the monies that go into Kaysville, spending them effectively and wisely. And I do like what's been said already, to listen to you, the citizens, and make sure we're spending the money in the ways that you want. As a boy, I actually was born and raised in Washington, D.C., then moved to Vernal, Utah, when I was 13 years old, going to 14. My father wanted a ranch. What a culture shock for me. But I loved it, loved every minute of it, loved getting in there, working on the farm, working with people, getting to know people in the community and helping them out. And that's kind of led me throughout my life. And I like to do that kind of stuff. And I think being a civic servant, helping out in the city council is all of our duty, and I look forward to doing that for you. And bringing that skill set again as an accountant, as a professor, also as a father. I have 8 kids. They're wonderful. I love each one of them. And it's fun I want Kaysville to be a place that they can live, and it'll be good in the future. One last thing just to end, too, is one thing we do as professors, we work on internal controls, putting in processes and procedures to make our city better, not just now, but in the future. So when we get done on the city council, the next one can seamlessly move in, and we do follow the voice of the people going forward to make this a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Barber, and I am so thankful to be here with you tonight. I'm a longtime Kaysville resident. I was raised in East Kaysville, and I have loved living here. I've loved the chance to move back to West Kaysville, where my husband was raised, and raise our family in this wonderful community. Some of the attributes that I think will best serve me and serve the city that I have when I'm on city council is hopefully that I'll be able to bring my leadership. I've been a leader my entire life. I have a positive energy that I've been told is contagious and an ability to unite people. I think that was one of my very exciting things that wanted me to get involved in Kaysville City Council. I also have a background in technology. I work every day as a user experience designer working on websites and tough big problems that we have to take a step back at and look, how can we solve these problems? How can we work together? How can I, as an engineer and a designer and a user, make the best decisions that are going to affect people? I walk around, I've been walking around lots of streets of Kaysville lately, knocking doors and campaigning, and I think this is exactly what I do. I help make things better. I solve problems. And I also will say I am so thankful that I'm going to be able to bring my passion for family, my passion for service. It's something that I've always done in my life. I've always been taught you look for an opportunity to give back, and this is a great place that I see that opportunity. Recently, I reviewed our last City Council Meet the Candidates night, and I have to say I feel like I am almost a different person from that one that was here a couple months ago. I have grown so much in empathy from things that have happened in my life since then. I've grown so much in knowledge of, I feel like I'm a master of all things Kaysville City these days, or I'm aspiring to be, and I've also grown so much in my passion that I have for what this city is and what we have, and my gratitude to be here, and my gratitude to see my name on the ballot as someone to represent you. Thank you.
I'm just going to let you know right now it's going to be stark throughout the night as Michelle sits down and I stand back up. It's just what it's going to be. My name is Randy Von Bosse. I have been living here in Kaysville for about 3.5 years. My husband has been doing training outside of the state, and so we just had a chance to move here a few years back, and we have really loved being here. I was born in Utah. My family has a cabin at Farmington Canyon, and I think that's it's closest to heaven you'll ever get. I wish it were in Kaysville, then it could really be that connection. But I have been attending city council meetings since the beginning of the year, and in that time I have learned a great deal. I've seen a lot of issues come before the city council that are complex and that have a lot of emotions tied to them, and they are things that I think the council has done a good job at handling. But I think that there has also been times where there needs to be clearer communication. And as I sat through the meetings and as the time to file came closer, it wasn't something I intended to do when I started attending the meetings, but it really did become evident to me that I have talents and abilities that could help the city. I have been involved in leadership for much of my life. Before moving here, I served on city boards where I was from, and then came here and jumped into community council at my kids' school and have been attending meetings. Lately, I've been going to Kaysville University. I have learned so much over the last 6 months, and I want to be able to share it. I guess it's 10 months now. My biggest priority is our families, making sure that we have safe routes and safe ways for our kids to get to school and to be out and about in our active community. I want to increase communication with the residents. I think that as we do that, we will be able to make improvements in our city that are needed. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of you for taking the time to come here tonight. I am a wife, a mom, a grandma. I'm not a politician. So why am I here? Why am I running for the city council again? Well, some might say I'm crazy, but I'd like to think it's because I have more work to do, and I'd like to continue working for all of you as citizens of this great city. I have been, when I was younger, I was asked to be a part of a float. They used to have a children's parade, and the children's parade would actually walk around the block of Kaysville Elementary School. And it was a wonderful opportunity for all of us to be creative and to be able to do some fun things. And they asked me if I would stand in the back of the truck and pretend like I was running for President of the United States. Well, let's say that may have been my kickoff, so I don't know. But with that being said, I do believe that being active and being a part of this community has been a big part of my life. I really love Kaysville, and I want to be able to help and serve and do as much as I can. My strengths are understanding the proper role of government, and also my willingness and ability to listen and to work hard. My experience in business, my husband and I actually had a trucking business at one time, but through the business and helping budget my family, I've learned frugality. And I have learned to trust in common sense, even though that's not common very much anymore. I also believe that if you have too much money, you don't have to spend it. I also believe if you have not enough, you should cut back. We should run everything like our own homes and businesses, and I hope to get your support. Thank you.
Okay, our second question, and we'll start with Katie. The UDOT proposal to expand US 89 into 6-lane limited access freeway would significantly affect Kaysville. What role should the Kaysville mayor and city council play in working with UDOT on this proposal? What transportation solutions do you favor?
Thank you. This decision is ongoing, and they have 4 options available. However, I want to, whatever decision the UDOT comes up with, it is my role as your mayor to fiercely advocate for this community. We need to protect our neighborhoods as much as we can from the impacts of the expanded 89. It will come, but what can we do to make sure that the touch is as light as possible on Kaysville specifically? I have met with residents in the area. They are very engaged. I want to be sure that when it comes time that we speak with one voice.
Good. When I like to echo some things. You know, it's interesting. I commute the 89 every day. If you work in Ogden, it's a great commute, okay, because everybody heads into Salt Lake, but you see them backed up for miles as I'm heading north, heading into Salt Lake in the morning. In the evening, it's just the reverse. So if you drive it, it's problematic. And like Katie said, is it going to change? Probably. But I think I agree that we need to just work together to make sure our voice is heard and make sure it's minimal impact. I mean, some of us are thinking, well, that's my backyard. That has more of an impact on you than anybody else. But it is a way, too, if we plan rightly, so it has low. The traffic can get by you without stopping you, and it might actually make your communities, if we can think of ways that it could help, although traffic is going by, it's already going by at sometimes a big pace, to limit its effect, you know, as far as exits go and how it affects your backyards and your neighborhood. But again, I'm all for it, listening to you, the people that are close by, the people that are affected most, to make that for me right now, it's a great route, okay? But what happens if I was going with everybody else? To make it a situation that works for everyone. And I'll support you in what you want. Thank you.
This project is near and dear to me. It is in the backyard of where I grew up in East Kaysville. And as I've been out campaigning and meeting with those neighbors, I've seen the impact and, frankly, the concern that they all have. What will this do to their homes and to their communities? A little bit of background: when my parents moved up to their home in East Kaysville 25-ish years ago, their realtor told them, wait for the day 89 will become a freeway before you know. So my dad and I went up and we sat about 5 o'clock, had to drive up to our lot in four-wheel drive and listened for the traffic to see, okay, what will this have? Do we have enough sound barrier between us and this potential freeway? It's taken a long time, but we're here. We're having this improvement that is really, really needed. I think we felt it for a long time, and it's finally coming. It'll be great in some ways, and it'll also have really, really strong effects on our neighboring communities. I know one of the proposals that they said is 6-lane highway. I look at it as actually 10 lanes, because if you look at those proposals, there's 2 frontage roads on each side, going 2 lanes on each side for frontage roads. That's 10 lanes up there. That is a substantial impact that's going to have. UDOT comes through and they have their proposal, but what I want to advocate as the city is the roads that we're left with. There's this elementary school, the elementary school that I went to, that's now going to have all of the competing traffic going right in front of it. That's an important piece that Kaysville needs to advocate for. What do we need there? Do we need traffic control? Do we need speed limit changes? Do we need alternate routes to get around? Those are things that I don't see UDOT taking into account. I've actually gone and met with their outreach specialist. And those are things that the city will absolutely advocate for, and I will continue to be the voice of the residents and support them in their advocacy to the city as well as to UDOT.
I think it really is a testament to Utah and how much of a mecca this has become. There's so much around us that our communities are just booming, and as has been said, the traffic comes with it. And we would love to be able to go back and live in the time when we didn't have to worry about that, but we're here and we have to deal with what's in front of us, and having more access routes is part of that. I do think that there are valid concerns because Kaysville backs up right, well, on both sides of where 89 will be running. In the process of meeting with many officials throughout the city and the district and the state and the county over the last little while, I think the thing that I have come to realize is there are very smart people working on things who have a lot of information, but they don't have the day-to-day information that we have here. And so they're going to come up with a plan that makes the most sense on paper. And our job as a city is to go back to them and tell them how that actually affects us. And they'll go back and they'll check all of that data that we give to them. But that is our job as a city, is to make sure that we are thinking through all of the implications and looking at the ways that this will truly affect our community and making sure we communicate that to UDOT, whether it be through advocating for citizen feedback, because that is listened to very highly, or by the city council and the mayor and the administration going and making sure that UDOT understands the effects that are coming into our community and making sure that we mitigate those before it gets too far down the road. Because the further we go down this process, the more federal hands get involved and it becomes more complicated. So I think it's important right now that we start looking at that and knowing how that's going to affect our city and making sure that we are giving that feedback to UDOT so that they can accommodate and make those changes we need right now. Thank you.
It was over 12 years ago. I actually lived over in the Hess Farms area of Kaysville, and my backyard looked at the I-15 freeway. And they were in the process of expanding it. And we thought, well, we're going to get a sound wall. And sure enough, there was nothing on the plans for a sound wall. And so I got together with another lady in our neighborhood, and we thought we would like to get a sound wall. And we had the opportunity to actually go in and start the process of working with UDOT and gathering the support of many citizens over there in that area that were affected on the east side of the freeway to work with them and eventually get that sound wall. Was it easy? No. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of learning. I probably learned the rules better than UDOT did on sound walls, but it was what was necessary. And this is what it will take to work hard for those who are affected by all of the expansion that's going to be going on Highway 89, as well as those that will be affected, including myself. We moved onto the west side, and now I'll be affected by the West Davis corridor, so I can't get away from it. But with that being said, I'm happy to go to bat for the citizens for doing everything that I can to make sure that we get what is in the best interest of us citizens to have the smallest impact possible when they do build these roads or expand them. It's not easy, it's an adjustment, but we will do what we can to make it as small of an adjustment as possible. Thank you.
I know a lot about Highway 89. This has been in my purview as a planning commissioner, and right after we filed, I knew that that all kind of came together right then. They started to have open houses, and I have attended every open house. The question, what role should a mayor play? Exactly what I've been doing, to go to the meetings, to listen to all the citizens, to research, to advocate options, to speak with planners and highway officials. One of our staff members and I went and met with the project manager, and I've been to multiple meetings with citizens in homes about this, as well as the Review 89 Committee. Perhaps you've seen some of those signs up on the highway. There's a group that has organized between the different cities, and they've been doing a really great job. And so the question about what I favor is, along with the transportation goals that our county and our state has, I favor exactly what the review committee has also asked for, and that is that along with the transportation goals, another goal is included to preserve the character of that segment of our Old Town Highway. And I think it can be preserved, and it will be important to do it.
Okay, and our next question, we'll start with James. If you are running for mayor, tell us which other government entities you will need to work with to protect Kaysville's interests. And if you are running for city council, what role should city council members take in lobbying outside entities?
It's funny, when you first asked that, I thought, if you were running for mayor, I'm not running for mayor, and I don't want to do that. Sorry, you two. That's not my interest. But I'm glad you had the second part. It's important for what we do. I have been renting a home off of Mutton Hollow, and so on the north side, right off of Main Street for 4 years when I moved here. Because we have a big family, we look for a house the whole time. There's a point to this story. Just moved to the south side. It's kind of fun to be, because I feel like I'm from the tough part of town now, okay? But I'm on the south side off of Shepherd Lane. But it's interesting, we're affected by two freeways. There's going to be an exit come on I-15 on Shepherd, if you weren't aware of that. There's going to be the West Davis corridor with a mink farm exit. And this is going to affect us, as you think on the south side. So definitely, it's working with, getting involved with UDOT. As I ask people that are working on that, we can still have an effect on that mink farm exit and have some input there. It's interesting, Farmington, I attended a Farmington City Council meeting based upon that issue. They're developing just north, and I don't know if you're aware, north of Station Park. So we need to be communicating with them. It's interesting because they didn't let our citizens, they let the ones by law they had to know, but there's a lot of us that were close by that were affected. We need to be up on those issues because it's our neighbors. It's going to affect us. And if we're not proactive, visiting with them, letting our input known, planning with them, and making sure this works for everyone, just not for Farmington, but for Kaysville. And I think it's that way throughout the city. Whenever we have the chance, work with UDOT, work with our surroundings, our neighbors, when you think about our neighboring cities, so we can have solutions that work for all of us and don't impact us as a city of Kaysville negatively. So that's, again, very important for us to do. Thank you.
When I think of the role of city council, it's actually one of the main reasons I wanted to get involved in city council, because it's where the action and the magic happens. It's the ones who are out there meeting with residents and really have a strong impact. I love the local government, and I love this race. I love that we run independently, we run on our own, and we run with the voice of we will represent residents. So when you ask how we would lobby as a city council, I would represent the residents who elected me as I got in there. Absolutely. I work with surrounding neighboring cities, as well as our state UDOT and the state legislature. We represent them. We've had some great examples in Kaysville recently of residents working together and putting their voice together to be shown to the city, to be shown to our planning commission, to be shown to city council. This is what we want, and this is what we hope that you will listen to for us. So as a city council representative, I look forward to lobbying with your voice, with your things that you look forward to, the questions that you have. I look to educate myself and find out those answers and return and let you know what I found and lobby with your voice at hand. I think one of the best things I've done recently is getting to know city council candidates and current city council of our neighboring cities. They have some great input because they go through similar questions that we have. I listened to their Meet the Candidates nights, the ones that we had. They have similar problems, and we can work together and bring our voices together as a stronger unit than if we were alone. Thank you.
I'm going to go on a little bit of a personal tangent, and I hope you'll indulge me. I mentioned that when I moved here, I got involved in my kids' community council. They attend an elementary school out on the west side of Kaysville, and as many are probably aware, that area grew very rapidly, and we were not able to get safe walking routes in place as neighborhoods were developed. And so our community council became very involved in making sure that we had safe routes for our kids to get to school. It's still an ongoing issue. But as I was chair of that council, and we would have 4-hour meetings where all of the parents were very upset, and we would try and figure out the best solution. And I'm sitting in charge of this meeting thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to figure this out? And so I dove into Utah State Code to figure out what is the job of community council. And as I read through the code, it was incomplete. And there was no clear definition of where the city's responsibility is and where the district's responsibility is and where the state's responsibility is. And that's become a big concern for me. I think that we do have a lot of gaps in great ideas and great policies that are out there that are not complete. And the only way that those are going to become complete is if we begin working together. Last night, I had a great opportunity to come and meet with Chief Oberg over at the police center. Oh my goodness. Thank you, station. That's not a hard word. But we were over there, and he was talking about how all of the neighboring cities, if we don't have officers available, they will send their officers. And I said, well, do we bill if we go help? And they said, no, we all just know we're going to go help each other. And I thought, how great is that? That cooperation that ends up saving everybody money. And I think that needs to happen on more levels. We need to be communicating with our school district. We need to be communicating with our state. I know that there are meetings happening between the mayor and the city manager and those entities, but I think it needs to be deeper, and it needs to be boots on the ground, passing up information on the chain of how we can make this all work better. Thank you.
In Kaysville, we have an opportunity as a city to be a part of the Kaysville Leagues of Cities and Towns. And as a member or having membership in that, we have a lot of resources that we can use, and it also gives us the opportunity to correlate and converse with other cities, to work together, to get ideas. We always gather probably some of the best ideas we've used or share some of the greatest ideas that we've come up with other cities. One in particular is the use of how we live stream. That was thought up here in our own city, and we've been able to share that with other cities. Networking is so important that we do this. Another way that we have done this is with the power company. We're part of UAMPS, which is a collection of other cities that have their own electric company. And we work together, we have to work together so that we can try and keep our power and electric bill as low as possible and make the best use of our infrastructure and how we do all of the repairs and what we deal with that. And recently, the reason I bring that up is because we've had to go through a whole process with our Power Commission on changing how we're going to deal with the rate structure in Kaysville. And a big part of that is because of solar users that we have in Kaysville. It is a big part of our infrastructure, and it was important that we reached out and we worked with a lot of people in the solar industry to get a good idea of what is the best way and action that we can go forward with, not only to protect the interest of those who are not solar users in Kaysville, but to also advocate for that type of usage in Kaysville. This is all possible when we work together, and I will continue to do that. Thank you.
I believe that the mayor is a very important connection between all other entities and the people of the city where the mayor serves. And the mayor can take time that is perhaps a little harder for staff to take in all the roles and all the jobs that they have to do. The mayor can take a lot of time to meet with citizens to understand. And then, when the mayor has been learning, and if the mayor knows the decision makers, the mayor can bring people together. I just finished a course in my master's program of public administration in negotiation and collaborative management. It was an awesome course. And everything that's been going on in Kaysville and in my work as a planning commissioner, I was able to use in my class with case studies. So there's a whole lot of information about Kaysville at the University of Utah right now. And it's been fascinating to apply what I've been learning in my service as kind of in real time. So one of the examples is that because I've been on the Active Transportation Committee for Kaysville and Farmington, and because I've attended many, many conferences and trainings as a public official, I know the people who are serving in Farmington and in Fruit Heights and across our borders, and I know the UDOT people, and I've been able to arrange meetings so that those people can come and see the properties that citizens are concerned about. So one example recently was the West Davis corridor that was mentioned. I was able to hear the concerns of the sewer district and of the citizens right there in Sunset Equestrian Estates, and I spoke with the manager of the project, and he came down, and 100 people showed up to a meeting, and he answered questions for 2 hours.
Having served on a city council before, I understand the importance of really networking with your other elected officials and also those who serve at the state and federal level. I have recently gained the endorsement of Brett Milburn, our County Commissioner Brett Milburn. Why is this important? The county commissioners are in a position to help decide who gets Prop 1 money. And we want that money. We want that money to be spent here in Kaysville. So when you have relationships that you build with individuals around us, you can parlay that into a seat at the table. You need, whenever Kaysville's issues are being discussed, we need a seat at the table, because if we don't have a seat at the table, our issues are on the menu. So another group, we have to do a good job with working with Fruit Heights. We share fire and ambulance services with them. We need to work with Farmington. This is going to be a big issue as we're moving forward, because there is, as the West Davis corridor is coming through, there is a segment of road that needs to join the I-15 with West Davis corridor. We need to work collaboratively with Farmington in order to get that accomplished. One thing that I did when I was on city council before, I had socials where I invited not only our city council members, but the city council members from surrounding communities, so we could get to know each other and work collaboratively on issues that were important to all of us. And I hope that I'm going to be able to do something similar. I also have been endorsed by Stuart Adams and Brad Wilson, and I hope to advocate strongly for Kaysville on state issues as well.
Okay. All of our questions going forward are going to be 1-minute questions. And we're going to start with audience questions. Just so you know, these came from the audience. And we're going to start with Michelle. UDOT is going to put the West Davis corridor through the Central Davis Sewer District property on the west. Kaysville is thinking about putting the road on the east side of the district property, and Farmington wants to put a road on the southeast corner of the district property. How will this impact the citizens of Farmington, Fruit Heights, and Kaysville?
Ooh, I love this question. I think I know who planted it. Thank you. This is a great question because it affects all of us, whether you realize it or not. It's interesting how we, years ago, put a sewer treatment plant so far away that it would never affect or bother anyone. And pretty soon, look at the plat. Now it has something bothering it on all three sides, and it's going to be a pretty big problem. I was on the phone yesterday with a member of sitting on the board of trustees who communicated this is very dangerous for our city, even if Kaysville does propose this to move the road east of the sewer district treatment center. We're still losing a lot of our opportunity for efficiently getting rid of this bio-waste. It's a great thing. It's gone really well for us. It's kept our taxes low and our fees low. What I would propose is we continue to advocate to UDOT. Even though it may take up more space than we are expecting, it'll keep a huge change from coming and affecting all of our taxes and prices.
This is such a complicated issue. For those of you that might not be familiar with it, I might get some of the numbers wrong, so forgive me, but the sewer district uses about 400 acres right now, where the waste that we use through a few cities surrounding us are taken and buried, basically. And they need all of that acreage for it to be accomplished. And I think that is something that was not very clearly communicated up until just a couple months ago. And now it's in UDOT's radar, but we are at a point where we don't have land necessarily available without soliciting the federal government to use wildlife land. And so at this point, it looks like the solution we're being pushed towards is to have our 400 acres basically relocated, but then we have to truck all of our waste to that new location, or we have to invest in new equipment. Both of those are expensive. And my personal feeling, in the meeting Lorraine mentioned, I talked to Randy Jeffries, and my big concern is making sure that that cost does not get passed on to the residents using the service, but that UDOT helps mitigate that.
What makes this really an interesting exit into our city is it will be completely on Kaysville's property, but it's to benefit mostly Farmington. And because of that, as a city council and a mayor, it's going to be very, very important that we hold strong and get exactly what we want before we approve or go forward with allowing anything to happen with this entrance-exit for the West Davis corridor. And with that, it's important that we maintain as much of that sewer district area as possible. Some of the plans that have been put forth have a minimal effect on that area. Then there's others that have a greater effect. What we want to push for is something that has the least effect and also does not affect our bottom line. And so that's what I will advocate for. Thank you.
A long time ago, I had a tour of the sewer district, and I should have been refreshed that there's a lot of things you shouldn't flush down, including baby wipes. So just know that about our sewer. Please don't flush that down. But as soon as this popped up that this was a problem, I called them, the sewer district, and I said, I'd really love to have a tour. And actually, one of the board members took me on a tour. And in fact, there's someone in the audience who's on the board, which is pretty cool that he's here tonight. So I had a tour, and I learned about their practices. They actually don't bury, but they do spread, and they need that much acreage to have the environmental and an inexpensive bio-waste operation that they currently have. So this is a huge problem. If the West Davis corridor takes away some of that property, they're going to have to invest in very expensive equipment, a dryer, all the maintenance, perhaps trucking it to Tooele. It's a huge challenge to figure this out, and Kaysville's involved.
Thank you. Recently, I was meeting with residents on our very southern part of Kaysville, and this is going to be directly impacting them as well. Something that did come up in the meeting was the fact that Sunset will not be able to be extended on the east side of the sewer district. So that is new information. They are looking only at making the connection between West Davis Corridor and I-15 via Glover's Lane. Now, a third of that is going to be on Kaysville's land, and 2/3 will be on Farmington. Farmington is insistent that that be a 4-lane road. That cannot happen to that neighborhood, that the impact is too great. We need to hold the line on that and be sure that we protect our neighbors.
This is a little near and dear to home. That's my neighborhood. That's how I tell people, how do you find my house? Go to the sewer. My wife hates me using that as a marker. You'll find us. My hopes is that we wouldn't even have an exit there. You know, it would be the dream, because we're already getting a Shepherd Lane exit on the I-15 that services that. And again, everything that's been said I agree with. We need to be very careful about that footprint. You'll feel the expense. Any ways we can avoid it, move it, do things to get around it would be the best we can. But we need to be strong and be united. And I'm glad we're bringing up the issue now. And I'm sorry to talk so fast, but I'm glad we can bring up the issue now, so we're working together to make sure that affects us as little as possible and to do it the best we can. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Randy on this question. As an elected official, do you condone full transparency in all your operating systems? And specifically, what will you do to ensure all residents' voices are heard, respected, and not silenced?
I think that the resident's voice become paramount. That, for me, has been one of the first things that I decided when I decided to run, was that if I was going to be a representative, it had to be a true representative, that I had to have avenues available to communicate. Anybody who is active online, which I recognize is not everybody, and I apologize, but I have made a very concerted effort to be active, to communicate any information that I have been given, and to open up avenues for people to contact me back. I respond to emails. I want to work through problems, and there won't always be solutions that everybody wins with, but I do believe that there can be solutions that take into account all of the different positions and at least comes up with a middle ground that we can explain. And if we can come up with those middle grounds that say this is our top priority and this is why we're making this decision, I think that is how we will succeed as a city.
You know, when I first got on the council, one of the things that I would see in neighborhoods is there would be a yellow notice sign sitting in front of somebody's yard. And I'd always say, what's that there for? And then you would talk to the people that live by there, and they'd say, well, I'm not sure. Well, what I did when I got on was to make sure when those when somebody is going to do a zoning change or get a conditional use permit, that there be a mailer sent out to those who are directly affected, their neighbors, and make sure that they're contacted so they recognize that there's going to be a change and they are aware, so they can give their voice and have input on it. I think advocating for all of you is a top priority. Representation is what we do on the council as far as I'm concerned, and I will continue to do that. Thank you.
All right. Full transparency, the very best transparency, is probably the number one thing that citizens want. They want to be able to know what's going on. They want to be able to keep up, but you have very busy lives. We all have very busy lives. So I think the question is how can we do a better job as a city allowing people the chance to know everything that is going on. And there is something now in the latest newsletter that came up. You can actually sign up for every part of Kaysville City's interests that you want to be notified on. That's a step in the right direction. There's some service from Qualtrics that the city has bought into so that we can keep moving toward better ways to share information with our citizens and for better ways that citizens can share information with us. We need this.
I'm going to focus on listening to residents. And you opened the door this much, I'm going to step on through. Strategic plan. And I feel very strongly about this, that a strategic plan is a vision for our city. What is Kaysville going to look like in 10 years, 20 years? We need to make those plans now. It's going to be a big job. Who puts this plan together? It's the residents, schools, businesses, churches of Kaysville. So I am a firm believer in citizen engagement. How can we have citizens feed us information sooner in the process? We are doing a great job. If you look at Pioneer Park, they had a citizen group that advised on that, and then they had an open house, and there were over 100 people who came and gave input on that. I want to see us do more of that here in Kaysville.
I think you've heard a consistent message. We just want to. I just want to represent you and what your feelings are, the things you'd like, represent the majority's voice. I think that's what I'm after. And if I don't agree with the majority, I'm going to do my best to persuade you to my way of thinking. But if I can't, I'll go with you. That's as an elected official, I think that's what we're obligated to do. This Qualtrics system, I don't know if you know what Qualtrics is. It's also used as a surveying system. And if we could tweak that, wouldn't that be cool to really just have everybody that's registered on the system say, what do you really think about these important issues, and get the feedback? Because sometimes you hear in a city council, well, I know you're here and you're upset, but everybody else must like this. And I don't think that's the case. The ones that come are the ones that are concerned. So it would be neat if we have a system like that. But whatever it is, I'll have a listening ear. I'll do my best to represent your voice to make the city the best place it can be.
All right, I'll get right down to what I think this is. Transparency to me comes down to communication, and communication to me means technology. We have wonderful avenues to do this. I love the Qualtrics idea. I work with Qualtrics extensively, but we're not going to stop there. You need to know that you have, rather than just a one-sided survey, you have a way to actually get in front of the people who are making these decisions. It's great that I'm getting a postcard, but how about a text message? How about another notification that's cheaper and faster, and I can get it where I need it and where it's most important? I also feel like our Thursday night city council meetings, they're great, and I'm looking forward to attending them if elected, but I don't feel like that's the only way residents should be able to come and voice their opinions. That's not being very respectful and good governors of our residents' time and energy. We need better ways for them to communicate and share their ideas with us as a city, and to me, that comes down to technology. That comes down to utilizing ways that we have. We'll continue to mail things if people prefer that, and we need to, but let's utilize the skills and assets that we have, that I have, and that I've acquired.
Okay, and we'll start with Susan. And the following question was asked very many ways, which probably gives you a heads up. How should contentious rezoning issues be resolved? And you have again. 1 minute. How should contentious rezoning issues be resolved?
Well, this is an issue that many of you here tonight actually know we've been dealing with. I think that it's very important as a representative of the citizens to listen to those who are most affected by an issue that might change a zone. And what I've done is I've made it a priority for me to go out and personally knock on doors and to talk to the people and to understand why they are concerned about it, if they want it, if they don't want it. I think that's what it's mostly about. I think that we need to actually make sure that not only do we take care of those most affected by it, but that we also inform people why we do or don't need it. And as an elected official, I will continue to do this and work for the people. Thanks.
I would like to see some changes in our process. Some of these things can be prevented. People get surprised. They didn't get the information. People didn't reach out to them or educate them. And then there's rumors that begin, and they hear, it's kind of like the game of telephone where there's some information that was maybe mostly accurate, but then further out it goes, it's less and less accurate. So I feel very strongly that that there is better noticing in our city. As a brand new planning commissioner, almost 4 years ago, I learned best practices from a city planner who works in Holiday. He lives in Kaysville. He had ideas. He sent me home with a chart, and I've shared it with the city and with our new staff in the zoning, our zoning staff. He's taking a look at this right now because we're discussing it as a commission to make improvements. There's a lot we can do to prevent some of these issues that are coming up.
This has really been hard on our community. It isn't just one area that this has been a problem. It's been multiple areas where rezones have become heated. The important thing to do is make sure that, as Lorene said, the process is clear. You need to have a clear process and stick to the process. Once the decision is made, you support the decision. You can't have a do-over again and again. So I think we need to be clear. You can disagree with the outcome, but everybody should agree on the process. And that's as clear as I can make it.
It's good as you listen to the different these candidates, up and down, because I agree with a lot of the things that have been said here. It's all in the process, too. The last question was about transparency, but if you're aware, we need to make sure those communication channels happen, that you're aware of it, and better processes in place to start out, and never let it get to the contentious issue, because oftentimes we get contentious when things surprise us, it's going to affect us negatively, and we weren't involved in the process to make it right. And that's, again, I agree with good processes put in place will help us to avoid many of these things going forward. Thanks.
I'd like to say that disagreements don't have to automatically be contentious. What a beautiful world that would be in. I also think that one of the best things we can do is inform citizens with our transparency before we get there and give them respectful ways to communicate. We have had lots of examples of the contention. We've also had some great examples recently of residents uniting together, putting together a petition. Petitions in themselves, to me, I think the names on the signature are great. It represents interest, but what was most helpful is when we have communication with each other. We have comments going back and forth together, and we have a clear voice that we go and represent, and we need a city that we can trust to deal with us in a consistent manner, in a consistent way, that it doesn't have to get contentious. Just because I disagree with someone doesn't mean that we have to have a huge contentious battle. I was just recently, today, before I came here, visiting one of those areas of a rezone, and I hate that it became that contentious point because it wasn't a consistent way that it was dealt with from the beginning.
I'm going to just speak directly to the issue that's prompting the question. The landscaping company on Burton, it has become a hard issue because there are so many people involved with it, and I understand that. I will be as transparent as I can in my positions on it. I have been attending City Council since it first came on the agenda. When it first came forward, I thought this placement of a landscape company makes sense. It's already in an industrial area. It seems to fit. If there hadn't been irregularities in how it came about, I don't think it would have even been a question. So at the onset, I was in favor of the rezone. But the longer that it went on and the more people I heard that were genuinely concerned about what was going on, I began to shift my position. And not because there were people that were upset, but because on the other side of that, I could not find any good reasons why we should go ahead with the rezone. Because we don't have a plan in place, because we don't have clear processes, and nobody could explain to me why we went ahead with it. That being said, I think that once the decision is made, we do have to support it.
Yeah, we're going to start with Lorene on this one. Okay, this is another 1-minute question. What have you done to make Kaysville better?
The first thing I did to make Kaysville better was raise 5 Davis darts. And there were some bumps along the way, but I think they're turning out, so that's all right. In my own neighborhood, I think that's where it started, at our elementary school, Windridge. There were some rash of burglaries that was going around. This happens from time to time. I started a Windridge neighborhood watch, so I actually do have ideas about some of that around Kaysville. It's come up again recently in our city. Other things I've done lately, I guess, is the public service. I mean, that's what has motivated me to pursue this path and to get another degree. I feel very strongly about contributing to my community because I know that I have some of the things our city really needs right now, especially to work on our economic development. Because I'm a business person, there's a lot that we can do to support our businesses so that taxes can stay low.
Well, I moved here in 2014, so I've had a shorter amount of time to make an impact on Kaysville. However, I feel that I have made an impact on Kaysville. I do something called Kaysville Condensed. I go to all our city council meetings, and I do a video update that I post directly to Facebook because we have no press coverage of our city council meetings, which I think it makes it difficult for people to track what's going on city council. And if it's hard for a normal person to track what's going on city council, it's very easy to spread misinformation about what's going on city council. So after I ran for city council two years ago, I was not successful. So I have just continued to go to city council meetings and do these video updates. And we now get about 1,500 views per episode. So I feel that it has made an impact, and people tell me all the time, thanks for doing it.
I've watched Kaysville Condensed, so if you haven't watched it, give it a try. It gives it to you fast. Some of the things I've done, so I was just jotting down some notes. It is interesting because you start with your family and you teach your children how to be good citizens. Right now I'm running for city council, and I know it's been great to go out and meet people. It's been funner for me to take my children with me, to be at doorsteps, and they're the cute face that people line to the door. Because at first they think I'm a weird salesman, but then when they see my beautiful children, they talk to me, but the kids get to hear people's concerns, and as we're walking the next house, we talk about it, and we talk about how can we make a difference and help out. Other things I jotted down, I'm just, regardless of the outcome of this, I do hope you vote for me, but if not, I have a better perspective on how I can help the people of Kaysville and go forward and serve, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Something that I have always held true is you always try to make a place better. Always been part of me. It's been how I was raised, and it's something that I always do. My family will laugh because I can't see a volunteer sign-up sheet without putting my name on it. I've always been that person. I'm excited. I've been serving in my school. I'm on every PTA committee possible. I put together a neighborhood watch. Something that I really am proud of is the support I've given to local businesses and the way that I've helped and promoted them. I've always known how hard it is to be a local business. I've known how hard it is to make it in a big business world for a small person. So I continue to do that. I've met with local businesses through my campaign, and I'll continue to be there. I also have worked really hard to volunteer on events through our community events. I attend almost every single one of them. I feel like it's a great way to know our city, and when you go there, you have a feeling of gratitude. This is a wonderful city that we're proud to be part of, and I've also taken my kids on nearly every campaign trip. They can't go to the grocery store without dropping off flyers right now, and it's a great way to serve our city.
I've already told you some of the community involvement that I've done, but I'm going to jump to some involvement that may not make me look the best, but I'm actually quite proud of. I said at the beginning of the year I wanted to get involved, and at the same time I started coming to City Council, I also contacted the city and said, where can I volunteer? And I think it's amazing in this city because there's always somewhere where you can volunteer, and it's why we can function on a low budget, because we have people who volunteer. And so I went in and I met with our Parks and Rec director and said, where do you have a need? And he said, well, we need somebody to head up the water parade. And for anybody in the room who's familiar with the water parade, that sounded very, very daunting. And I worked on it for many, many months, and we hit roadblock after roadblock. And when it came down to it, we had 5 trucks, and they were all high school students, and we had the city's brush truck, and it was not big, and it was not spectacular, but as I walked down that route, it's still a very special experience for me because I saw the neighborhood and the community come out, and they were involved, and that made it worth it.
Well, I can tell you, serving for the last almost 4 years on the council, I've had the opportunity to serve on many capacities. A part of that has been a recent one that I'm really excited about, and that is the museum that we're going to try and get built for Kaysville. It's long overdue. Mostly, the reason I think this is such a important step is because we're losing so much of our heritage. A lot of it is being donated to the Leighton Museum. We need to keep that here in Kaysville, but we don't have a place for it. This isn't going to be done with taxpayers' money. We're going to put a 501c3 together, and we're going to get a fundraising going. It's important that we preserve heritage in America in general, and I'm happy to try and help do it in Kaysville. Thanks.
All right, this is our last question for tonight, and we'll start with Katie. Okay, you get 1 minute to add or clarify anything.
Oh, good.
And summarize why voters should vote for you.
All right. I wrote these things down, so I'd be sure to say these. But I want you to know that as your mayor, I will bring order to our city council meetings. And as your mayor, I will fight for funding for our roads and infrastructure. As your mayor, I will make safe walking routes to school a top priority. And as your mayor, I will reject high-density housing everywhere in the city. As your mayor, I will fiercely advocate for you. And I hope that you take the time to ask me more questions if I have not answered your questions, either on the phone, on your doorstep, or through my mailers. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you bring to Kaysville, and I hope that together we're going to make Kaysville stronger together.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I actually was looking up a quote by Thomas Jefferson, and one that I liked. And if we can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people, it goes on to say, we will be happy. And my skill set, again, is just to make sure that I use the resources, your tax dollars that are given to us, to treat that stewardship with the best of my ability, to make sure I listen to your voice, that it's used well and used wisely, so I don't waste your labors, that they go to good uses, that the city of Kaysville will continue to be the wonderful place it is, and that when you do want changes made, I'll be there to represent your voice. And so Kaysville will be a place that you can live and always be happy to think that you're a resident of. Thank you.
Kaysville, you've seen me at nearly every community event. You've seen me in the 4th of July parade handing out barber combs to vote for Barber. You've seen me knocking doors. You've seen me visiting local businesses. You've seen me placing signs and getting to know residents. You've seen me attending Kaysville University, becoming notified and educated on all of the things in Kaysville. I started this campaign because I was seeing things that were wrong, seeing things that I could fix, things that I could use my talents and leadership and communication to fix and make better. And while I still think that, there are still things I see wrong and I'm excited to make better, I have seen so many things that are right in Kaysville. So many good things that I am excited to compound on. I'm so excited to be part of this community that I knew was great, but it's so much better. I'm thankful for the city leaders that are already making great strides, doing wonderful things that people just don't know about right now. They're not the ones on the news. They're not the things that we're talking about after council meetings, and I want to highlight those. I want to be part of that. And as your city council member, you will see me represent you. Thank you.
My husband woke up this morning and almost seemed giddy, which was kind of weird, and I looked at him and said, "Why are you acting like this?" And he said he was just excited for me today, and I think it's because he's watched the last 10 months of my life where I have really dove into this and gained so much information and learned to love this amazing place that we live in. And at the end of the day, all of that time that I've put in really just means that I'm ready to hit the ground running. I won't have a startup time. There won't be a lag. I am ready to get going. I know how things work. I know what's been happening in the council, and I'm excited to jump in and help and to be a voice and to be a representative for you. I will exhaust my abilities in that. I will work to do the things that don't make me look good, but make Kaysville look good. And that is my goal, and that is my hope. Thank you.
As I sit here, I reflect back on the several years that I have been able to serve so far and how happy I am with all the things that we've been able to accomplish. And I invite all of you to take a few minutes before you leave tonight to go over to my table. I have listed the many things that we've been able to accomplish since I've been on the council. And as a representative, if I'm elected again to continue serving, I will work just as tirelessly and just as hard to represent you and to listen to you. I think when you serve, it's not about me and what I can do. It's about all of you. It's about all of you stepping up and giving that a little extra to help with this community, because the community and all your involvement is what makes it work. And I look forward to continuing to do that. Thank you.
With my 1 minute, I want to thank every single candidate who's worked hard and been so brave to step up. You're a really great group of people. And thanks to all of you who have come. We are a great city because we have great people who live in this city, who care a lot about Kaysville. And I care a lot about Kaysville. I've prepared to lead, and I'm ready to lead if you would like to have me as your mayor. On Memorial Day, I sat down with all the things that I've worked on and that I know about as a planning commissioner, and I wrote a list of what I thought were the top 10 city issues. And I look at that list on my website. You can go look at it. And all of those things are still the things. I knew it because I've been serving you, and I know what we need to work on as a city. So they're all there. You have my flyer, and the roads and highways are big. Safe walking and cycling is big. We've got to have a more efficient, effective city council, engagement with our citizens and businesses, support for our staff to do the jobs the best way they can, and to keep Kaysville's awesome character. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Why don't we have all of you stand up? Thank you for coming. Thank you for being willing to run for office. I don't know that you all know how lucky Kaysville is to have so many great candidates running for office. Thank you for being willing to run for office. And thank all of you. We'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight, taking the time to be involved in your government and in this process. And remember that you should get your ballot this week. And if you don't, go online and check your address. And Tuesday, November 7th is the election. So have a good night.